Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here with my friend, Bud Morrissette, CEO of Interstate Family of Companies. Bud, thanks for joining us here at Global HQ in Dallas.
Happy to be here that I finally got here.
You finally made it. We've had some weather. That was a little dicey there for a minute.
Yeah, my flight was about 3 hours late today,
Wow.
so I made it just in time.
You know, transportation, it's unpredictable, right?
It's unpredictable.
You never know. Get in the comments. Want to hear from you. Let us know who you are, where you are. Give your company a shout out. Get in the comments if you got any questions for us. We're going to be talking about moving, logistics, diversifying a company. Bud's company's been around for 80 profitable years, which is incredible. I couldn't go 3 years being profitable. So I got to learn something here. It's going to be a master class on how to run a business here. So yeah, get in the comments here. And I want to learn about what makes the company tick, over such a long time. But I've known you probably now for probably about 10 years.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It has. I was thinking maybe when you were at Pack Rat.
Yeah, exactly.
However long that's been.
Yeah, well, I was there for about 5 years. I was at the company after that for about 5 years. I've had Glomo now for 4.
Yeah, so a little bit over 10.
Yeah, maybe a little over 10 years. And you and JD, your brother, have always been really, really kind to me. Except the first time I met JD. No, I'm just kidding. No,
well, that's pretty much everybody.
He's like, Pack Rat, what's that about? And I was like, oh, here we go. No, but I mean, it was cool. And honestly, this industry has welcomed me. And it's been a lot of fun to grow in it and to kind of meet icons like yourself and to see what you've done with your business. And it's been inspiring to me as I look to diversify mine and kind of future proof it. But I want to ask you, as we got people coming in, I see Jillian, I see you, Richard, get in the comments here, hit that like button. How do you build a company that lasts for 80 years?
So I tell people we're old school. My granddad started it back in 1943. He was actually orphaned. He lost his mom when he was 8, lost his dad when he was 15, dropped out of the 9th grade and did odd jobs just to make it. And then got a good job with the federal government. And but about age 27 and right on the heels of the Great Depression, he decided to venture out on his own, $450 in a truck and go get a truck. And just odd jobs. Really wasn't a grand plan to be doing moving, but we all know if you have a truck, someone's gonna ask you to move something.
If you have a truck, someone's gonna ask you to move something. And I think too often entrepreneurs start out with this grand idea of what they're going to become. And sometimes that can kill a good little idea is too big of an aspiration. I mean, could he have ever envisioned the Interstate Family of Companies and what that would grow into?
In my opinion, no. Again, back then it was put food on the table, roof over your head, and clothes on the back for he and his 2 younger sisters. And then as he started a family, married my grandmother, and then my dad was the firstborn, and then 2 subsequent sons after that. And it was all about opportunity. He never said no. And so anytime anything came to him, he would say yes. And if he had not done it yet, he would figure out a way to get it done and charge a fair price, do a good job. And then he expected, the opportunity for referrals and repeat business. And that's how the business grew through the late 40s and 50s and early 60s, quite frankly.
Well, and those types of principles, in my opinion, are timeless, and they still will. Referral business still drives what we do today.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody watching today, think about who your clients are right now and how many of those came through a referral. And I'll bet you it's a large percentage.
Yeah. I'd love to know out there, if you're watching this right now, what percentage of your customers are repeat customers or referral customers? Let us know out there. We got Jillian checking in here. Jillian saying, hey, Bud, nice to see you at HQ, checking in from home office in Connecticut. Good to see you, Jill.
Hey, Jill.
Checking in. Can't wait for you to come experience this heat here in Texas. Although this morning
wasn't too bad right now coming in. I think the storms must have blown it out.
The storms was when it rains for like 12 hours consecutively, it cools everything down. But it'll be warm tomorrow. But I woke up this morning to hail.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. So
I looked on the map when they delayed us, and it was nothing but red down here. I mean, all over, just all red.
It was rough. Yeah. Richard checking in from London town. Bet the weather is worse here. Really, that's tough. We had a tornado in Collin County. Good luck with that, Richard. Ross Tanner, hello, Bud and Ben, coming to you live from Richmond, Virginia, just down the road a bit.
My neighbor down the road.
Very cool. And let people know just a little bit about, as we're talking about the history, but a little bit about Well, let's go back. Let's go back to history. So it started with a truck and some just wanting to help out and do some odd jobs and
desire
and
just again say yes to any opportunity that came along. And again, it's a really cool story. It really
Yeah,
is.
I want to hear
it. And the way it worked was that he started moving folks. And then as he moved folks, he was just looking again how he can make some more money. People need to store a little something.
Mhm.
I'll store it for you.
Now,
So
did he have a warehouse at that point, or was he
it's
using
a
somebody
shed.
else?
It's a shed. It's a shed.
Wasn't
Absolutely.
military approved?
No, it wasn't anything approved. It was he approved. It was whatever his wallet could afford.
Approved. I love it.
And so then back then there was no wall-to-wall carpeting in the late 40s and early 50s. So everyone had rugs.
Oh.
And so people had summer rugs and winter rugs. Winter rugs were thicker, wools. Summer rugs were thinner. And so what would happen is that as he would store these rugs for folks, he would say, can I wash that for you too? So he actually got into the rug cleaning business. Wow. And then as the business grew in the late 50s, he had a serious decision to make, because the rug cleaning part of that business was about as profitable as the moving business was. Wow. So he was just happened to talk to this construction guy, just maybe acquaintance of his somehow. And the guy was telling him, Arthur, he goes, they're building new homes, and these new homes are doing something called wall-to-wall carpeting. And he goes, I don't know if rugs are going to be as popular going in the future or not. And based upon that conversation, my granddad said, you know what, I'm going to stay in the moving business, and I'm not going to pursue the rug business any longer. And he sold the rug cleaning business.
Wow.
Just by a conversation.
It could have been, it could have been Interstate Rugs.
It could have been. It could have been.
So that's cool. So he got out of rugs. He said, I'm going to commit to this
Yes.
moving and logistics business. And get in the comments here. I want to hear your thoughts here on this amazing story. What was that inflection point and turning point in the history of the company?
It was big because, again, it was that crossroad. It was a yield, and he had to go left or right. And he realized he couldn't do both at the same time well. And this was the late 50s. My dad's just getting out of high school, going into school, and thinking about coming to the company full time. My two uncles were probably still in school then, and then, kind of transitioning into the 60s. And so he went moving and bought his first warehouse. He didn't like renting. He said, why am I busting my butt and my back every single day just to pay the man? And so he saved until he could afford his first warehouse. And actually, it was Quonset huts, old Army Quonset huts. Those round Quonset huts that they used in the Army to store things. And they're this kind of semi-moon aluminum building.
Okay.
And so he bought a couple Quonset huts to initially go and store goods in, until then he could go and then build the warehouse.
So I'm assuming these were not 3 high Quonset huts.
No, these were like maybe 12 high, 12 feet
12
high.
feet, not 3 lift fans or whatever. Sherelle Birds the third checking in here on Facebook. Cool story. What's up, Sherelle? Great driver and a great influencer in the driver area there. We got, hi, Ben. Welcome to Texas, Bud. Hit that like button. Get in the comments here. Let us know who you are, where you are. Sherelle, you out in Vegas? Where you at? So he got these, and I think I've seen these things. Are they like what they store like salt in on the side of the road?
Similar.
Sand,
very similar, yes.
So he got this and he started storing stuff in there.
He had 2 of them or 3 of them, the way I recall it, there in Southeast Washington, and then had the warehouse they built right next to a little 2-story warehouse. I don't think we are higher than 2 high in that warehouse, and actually it was a 2-story warehouse. And I think there was loose goods that were stored on the 2nd story of the warehouse. And so the company was growing, and this is good. It takes you through the early 60s into the mid 60s. They started doing some regional moving, not just local moving. Started looking at back then you had to buy authorities, other companies' authorities, because it was regulated.
So it was regulated, right?
It was regulated. So we could only go so far. And so, whatever authorities that would become available or he could purchase from someone else, would allow them then to go from, east of the Mississippi to the Midwest, then ultimately go 48 state authorities.
So are you saying that you had to buy authority by state? So it wasn't like interstate anything goes.
You bought it, and again, this is even a little before my time. But you bought your authorities, and the way I recall it, they were grouped regionally. So you could buy a Western, like 12 or 11 states of a Western authority, and then you could buy a Midwest authority, and then East Coast too.
Wow! So then you kind of piece together that water to water
to become a national van line ultimately.
Wow! And I'm always intrigued by those inflection points where people take a chance, because it's not like, people describe entrepreneurship as, taking a chance. You went out on your own, but it's a series of chances that are taken every time you take down that new hut or that new warehouse or that new authority that you purchase, every time you kind of lay down your bet and say, I'm going to expand a little bit more, you're taking another bet that could go either way on you, you know?
Oh yeah, it's all about risk, chance and risk. You know, I mean, both go hand in hand with each other, and you know, hopefully it goes well. But you know, as we all know, there's going to be that bend in the road that you didn't expect that you have to address when you come up.
Yeah, and that was last year for some of us, right? That was COVID for some of us. That was 2008, right, for some of us, right? Like how do you know, and I guess as a business owner now who continues to make investments in his business and grow it into all this, this really cool business. And we're going to talk a little bit about the diversity within your business. But how do you know when the right time is to place a bet and when the right time is to kind of stash those acorns away and say, let me weather the storm?
So I think that it comes with experience. I mean, it really does, because none of us really know. None of us have a magic ball to know exactly what's going to come in the future. I think it's, a lot of us have to look at our gut and, how do we feel inside about it? It's a hunch also. It's talking to others and getting some advisement from others. And in this case, he wanted to become a long distance national van line. And so he continued to pursue those opportunities that he was presented to buy the authorities and to be able to get into that business. And that came really in the late 60s. When back in the day, the company was founded as Ace Van and Storage Company.
Okay.
And so it's like, why Ace? Well, back then it was all about Yellow Pages business.
That's it. It's alphabetical.
And so ACE, it's not any simpler than that.
The A1s, the triple A's, there was a 4A forwarding. I remember back in Clearwater.
Oh, yeah.
So every 1-800 pack ride, it was the same thing.
Right.
Because it was the first thing, in the phone book. Right. 1-8. Right. Like you couldn't beat it.
It's amazing how the phone book dictated people's company names, just because your placement. But that was it. So it was Ace. And so then as they started to regionalize and then become a national van line, they realized they wanted to change the name and rebrand. So back in, I'm going to say that 66 to 68 timeframe, roughly, is when they were building the interstate highway system. It wasn't even in yet. They were building it. And so, between my dad and my granddad and talking it through, that's when they adopted the name and rebranded Interstate Van Lines. Wow. And they felt, okay, we're going to do long distance moving across the interstate highway, and, it goes hand in hand. Wow.
Really interesting. We got people checking in here in the comments here. Get in the comments. I want to know what your questions are. This is an amazing story. I'm really curious, I don't want to say how it ends, but how we get from, pre-deregulation to now. We got people checking in here. Sherelle, Adrian, Richard, I'm going to get to all your questions. Keep the questions coming in here. But I've seen so many van lines from back in the day, right? People post these pictures all the time on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, some old truck or some old sign, and you get all nostalgic about it. And most of them aren't around now.
No, I mean, you and I could probably talk for an hour here about all the old names.
Yeah.
The Neptunes, the Ivories, the Zeniths, you name it.
Yeah, I mean, Global, Apollos, a lot of celestial stuff going on back in the day.
Right.
But
Gray, I mean,
well, in Red Ball, I mean, there's ones that not too long ago, right? That were just kind of absorbed and
we absorbed Red Ball.
And you purchased Red Ball, right? So what makes a brand or a van line? What's the difference in the van lines that are here now in 2024 and those that were around in 1964?
Sure. Well, I think what you had asked earlier, how did we get to where we are in 80 years and that type of thing? And I said old school. And what I really meant by old school is that we have always been a cash and carry business. Again, with my grandfather coming out of the Great Depression, I mean, they hardly had 2 nickels to rub together. And certainly there wasn't credit cards and there was no credit. There was just that the banks were failing, so on and so forth. Wow. So what my granddad did is that he wanted to take control of his destiny. And so, as I mentioned earlier, he didn't want to rent. I don't want to pay the other guy when I'm working hard to earn this money. So I'm going to save until I can afford my own warehouse and then pay myself. And so, and to this day, we are a debt-free company. I mean, we had people throughout the years, decades and decades saying, oh, well, we could leverage this or loan money for that and this, that, and the other. And we've always strayed true to what he set out to do. And that was, if we can afford it, then we buy it. And if we can't, we don't. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I think to your point, saying, why are all these other van lines have gone out of business, and other firms as well, it's just not, moving companies, is that they got ahead of themselves, and at the end of the day, when your expenses exceed your revenue, you're in trouble. And then you have to address it very quickly. And if you don't, then that's it.
And when you have that debt and that note, and you have to service that debt too, I mean, now you're just talking about the amount of interest that you're paying, right? And that can really chip into profitability. We got people checking in here. Let's take a couple questions here.
Sure.
I love that about this format here. Hit that like button, y'all. Let's see here. Sherelle's taking care of the boss. He's in suburban Chicago. The wife's getting her nails done, so I decided to watch the show. Thanks, I appreciate that. It's good. It's good. We're big in the manicure industry, actually. Adrian, Bud, wonderful to see you here in Dallas at Gloma HQ.
Happy to be here.
What's up, Adrian? Get your questions in here in the comments here. Richard saying, interesting, referring to risk. What percentage of a decision would be based on market research?
Oh, a lot, as much as possible. And as we all know,
and is that market research like formal, like graphs and like McKinsey and Company, or is it calling up people at IAM like, hey, what are you hearing?
I would say it's probably three things. It's market research, and if you have resources like a McKinsey, great, go after it. But it doesn't have to be McKinsey. It can be whatever the source of that data it has available for you. So I was going to say the data on the one side, the relationships that you have and talking to people, and then it's talking to people that you don't have a relationship with too, to get their honest and frank opinion. Because again, if they don't know you, there's really no agenda, and what you can learn on the street from folks is amazing.
Now, what type of data points do you look at? Like, I've been obsessed with interest rates this past year and a half, right? And what it's done to the housing market, which is obviously who we move, right? What are some of the data points and things that you like to look at?
Our largest data point, I would say, is probably U.S. Census Bureau, because that gives you just the unbiased what's going on out there. And again, that data comes out a little bit aged, okay? It's not timely as to yesterday, but still it's consistent in its collection. So I think you really have to pay attention to that. Also, Department of Labor statistics, again, the government sources, and then the commercial sources. So I would say, for instance, what's coming out of National Association of Realtors or your local realtor boards in the area that you're serving. What's taking place there? It's full. I mean, we look at house listings in the markets that we serve. Almost every week we look at the house listings and what the trend appears to be, and not just the volume, but in what economic statuses are they buying. So are these apartments and condos? Are these townhouses? Are they single family? In what zip codes do they reside in? So we know household incomes, and you're just putting that all together to kind of paint you a picture.
Well, and I like the listings number is good because that's a leading indicator. Whereas some things there's a lot of lagging indicators. It's easy to find indicators that tell you what happened yesterday. It's harder to find indicators that tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. I also like the unemployment numbers. I think that's really interesting from both a talent management and recruiting standpoint, right? To know how in demand talent is, but also to know how many people are being hired and how many non-farm payrolls are out there. If we see big spikes in demand, we know there's going to be relocation activity. We know we're going to be importing talent from overseas, et cetera, right? All that causes relocation, global mobility activity, which we love, right?
Absolutely.
Good stuff, Richard. I'd love to know what you look at too, Richard, across the pond. Sandra's checking in. Happy Tuesday, all. I know this will be great. Looking forward to Bud dropping wisdom on us. And yes, Ben, along for the ride. Yeah, they know it is. Thanks, Sandra. Appreciate you. Hit that like button. Get in here. Let's see here. UPS. Yes, Richard says UPS recently called at our house. The uniform and van thought he stepped out of the 1950s. But I guess the message is we are old school, reliable. Yeah. What do you think about the whole image of the driver and the mover or logistician these days? And you talk about your grandfather Arthur, and I noticed in some of the old advertisements the black top hat
service.
What do you think about the image?
Sure. Well, again, my granddad was self-made, again, because he lost both his parents by age of 15. He didn't have any other family members. He didn't have any aunts, uncles, grandparents, or anything else to turn to. So literally every day was a new day, and he was figuring it out. And so I think he did a lot of watching of other people and behaviors. And if it was a bad behavior, well, I know I'm not going to do that. If it's a good behavior, I'm going to try to follow that type of path. And so again, back when he was launching that business in the first 15 years or so, he sat down with a woman. Peggy Dwyer was the first kind of like advertising marketing professional that he got in touch with. And when he was going to go, he knew that he was going to brand himself to a national van line, that he had to have something, had to have a differentiator. So that's where he came up with Top Hat Service. And that was his moniker for the quality of service that you were going to get from the organization. And then when the story goes, in '68, we were located in D.C. and we had the Martin Luther King assassination.
Oh my gosh.
And Washington, D.C. was devastated by vandalism, just the riots. And my granddad didn't even think the city could make its way out of it. It was so bad. Our building got firebombed, and it took down half the building.
And you were storing
we were on the front page of the Washington Star. And I think it was roughly about 70 pieces of fire equipment and over 100 firefighters on the front page. And so at that point, he knew we had to move out of the city. And the family found a piece of a property, 30 acres out in Northern Virginia, and subsequently bought that property. And that's where we moved the company to. And so you talk about risk and chance. So he went from maybe about 20,000 square feet of storage in DC and a couple of Quonset hats.
Still a nice size. And I can't imagine these huts in DC proper too. Okay.
It was there. Yeah. And to building a 100,000 square foot facility in Springfield, Virginia. So he's buying a property that's 4 and 5 times larger than what he was operating out of. Now that's risk because there was no revenue going into that. But he knew it was kind of like, I guess, what that Field of Dreams, you build it, they'll come. And he just had a level of confidence in himself and the team that they could fill that place.
And at that point, he had been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah, about 1943, 53, 63. Yeah, almost going on 30 years at that time. Going in that early 71.
So he had a real feel for the business. He had that gut instinct and everything, and he kind of knew the business. He knew his relationships. Now, at that point, were you doing corporate relocations or COD, or what was your
it was primarily COD and then government. I mean, he got into DOD and GSA work very, very early. In fact, people ask us, where did the color green of the trucks come from?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they had the family, my granddad and dad and sons, and everybody, they had a small contract with the Department of Interior. And the Department of Interior's trucks were light green like our trucks are today. And so the way the story goes, they felt if they painted the trucks the same color green as the Department of Interior would give them more business.
Would give them more business. I love it.
And that's where it came from.
And oh my gosh.
That's where it came from. Yep. So you never know what goes
I love
on.
the marketing ideas too, right? It's like, be first in the phone book, paint your trucks the same color as your customer, know your customer, right? I mean, isn't that no customer behavior? Right. So now you got this business that's growing. It's going through all the 60s, right? A time of tumult and everything. And at that point, it sounds like Arthur had bought up enough of these interstate authorities and kind of to go across, the country and take advantage of the new interstate highway system. What was that next level or kind of generation like in the business, and where did it go from there?
Sure. So I would say, again, now we're evolved into the 70s, new 100,000 square foot facility. And you were talking about some differentiation there earlier and the image of the driver. Yeah. And so where I was going with that is that now that he had some space, he created, and I do believe, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, a lot of folks listen and watching, I believe he built the first training house. Wow. So he built the training house.
And tell people what a training house is, by the way.
And so literally in the basement, so we have our facility in Springfield is actually 2-story. We are 3 high on the top side, and you come around the back of the building and we're 2 high. So in the lower level of the building, he built a 2-bedroom single family home with a kitchen and a living room and a utility room and everything else, and a classroom, and built a van inside the facility as well, and grass and sidewalk. And so you don't walk on the customer's grass, you use their walkway, and to do training. Wow. And so then all new employees of the company, this goes back to like around 73, I'm gonna say now, all new employees had to go through 80 hours of training
80
before they
hours.
could go out on their first
That's
job.
2 full weeks.
2 full weeks with no questions asked about it. Had to, because again, his desire was that being a mover is a professional skilled career opportunity. And it's not a couple guys, that are lugging refrigerators on the back of their backs down the street or something. And that he was going to professionalize the mover and everything having to do with it. And so by building that house and requiring everyone to go through it, and then every single day before the crews would go out, everyone had to go through a 30-minute refresher training, continuing education course every single day. Talk about what happened the day before, talk about, whether it's paperwork issues, loading issues, delivery issues. If a claim came in, why did the claim happen? What can we do to prevent that claim from coming in again?
Sure.
So what's 30 minutes, for 240 work days a year? That's how much after the 80 hours of training that everybody would go
120 hours of retraining.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. I love what you're talking about as far as making it a trade and making it a skill, and
just like plumbers get accredited and apprenticeships and electricians and things of that nature. That was his desire for the moving profession.
Well, it feels like we've left that in some ways. It feels like that was like the ultimate, back when there was good money in the business there, which could attract good quality labor, which had good quality training programs around it. And it feels like nowadays it's really hard to put that level of service together.
It's hard. I mean, it's not to say it wasn't hard back then. I mean, he certainly had challenges to figure it out, and he did figure it out. And I think today, we need to figure it out. There's a lot of companies out there now that have training houses. There's a lot. I mean, there's 3 or 4 in our market alone. And they say, how are the tide rises and everybody rises with it. And that's good. Get the first person to go do it or whoever, and then have everyone follow it. I mean, everyone should have, a training program. And again, we know from our trade associations that we've been trying to do training programs as well. I mean, AMSA came out with its Pro Mover program, and IAM has its program out there. It's doing
certified packer and loader training. I remember going through that back in the day. I got the CD-ROM, popped it in, did that kind of deal. I agree, and I think there has to be a way for smaller movers that maybe don't have, a big time warehouse where they can build that, but maybe there's regional training facilities that people
you can create something. You don't have to have a full-blown house. You can create an area of the warehouse there, either have a van in the lot that you're not using necessarily and you're using that all the time, put a couple storage vaults down in the corner, and work with those. I mean, there's ways to make it work. And then using the trade association's tools, if you can't develop your own program right now, it's a wonderful start.
Does the independent contractor model, though, create a little bit of a challenge between, because now these folks work for the prime contractor, and so and not all van lines have this model. There's independent contractors and there's employee models and all that.
Right.
But I've seen both. But with an independent contractor model, the lumpers and the packers and loaders, they don't work for the moving company. They work for the prime contractor or the driver.
Right.
And so whose responsibility does it become to train that person and pay for that person's training?
So I think it's collectively and collaboratively both the employer and the contractor, because we both have to realize the value of the training. It's going to help us. It's going to help him. He's going to own any damage that occurs by the crew members that he has. And so it's certainly worth his while also to invest in his team too. And I'll be honest with you, with most of the contractors that we're working with, they have that commitment. Yeah. And they're putting their guys through our program if they haven't been a part of a program elsewhere, and just assuring that they have that education, that understanding to do the job right.
Yeah. I really, really love it. We got people checking in here and put some great comments in here. Thank you, Sandra. She loves the family heritage and the pride from the 3rd generation and the Genesis stories. Yes. And we've got comments coming in, questions. Amar's got a question here. What's up, Amar? Checking in here. Amar's got a cool tire startup he's been working on. He does mobile tire installations for trucking companies.
Okay, good.
Got to talk to Amar. He says, can you describe the difference in business philosophies between your grandfather, father, and your own approach. Now, Mars also in a family business,
Okay.
so his dad and brothers and sister are in this tire business together.
Right.
So he's second generation in it.
Mhm.
So you can imagine the challenges, right?
Right.
Were they more focused on growth or maintaining the business as it was? And how have these differences influenced your own strategies today?
Sure. I think it was growth. It's obviously growth
Mm-hmm.
because we continue to grow. And, uh, so my dad always enjoyed talking to Dave Grable.
Yeah.
And Dave had all of his little cliches and sayings and stuff that he lived by. And I remember my dad would always repeat one of them, and that was failure to aspire is to expire.
Oh, wow.
And my dad got that from Dave.
Wow.
And he would repeat it time and time again. And because listen, there is no status quo. You just don't stay as is. You're either going up or you're going down. Everything's going to change around us, whether you like it or not. And so you might as well embrace the change and adapt to growing, because the other isn't so attractive.
Yep. I love it. And big shout out to Dave Grable, who passed.
Huge loss.
Yeah, recently. What a wonderful man.
Yeah.
Great icon in this industry. First person I met at my first AMSA conference was Dave Grable on the elevator. I was going down. I was working at Packrat. I was going down the elevator to the Red Rock Casino.
Okay.
That's also where I met That's also where I met JD. And I'm going out to the lobby, and I'm standing there on what floor? Oh, 14. Okay, cool. And he's like, "How are you doing?" I'm doing well, sir. How are you? He's like, "Good." I saw his name. He's like Dave Grable. I'm like, Dave Grable, D Grable, D Dave.
Right.
I was like, I've seen your truck. So I was like, it was back when they had the van line,
Right.
And he was just so nice to me.
The consummate gentleman.
Yeah.
I mean, just nothing but.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't question anything.
Yeah, wonderful person. But so the philosophies, though, going back to Amar's question, I love this question here, because sometimes the older generation butts heads with the younger generation. The older generation did it a certain way and got it to a certain point, and the younger generation's like, well, we see a changing marketplace, we see new opportunities. We kind of want to put our fingerprints and our own interests on this. I mean, look at Grable's a great example of that, right? Dave had this amazing vision, built this incredible van line, and Bill says, yeah, but I think non-asset based and professional services, is where the future is, right? And we want to create this RMC, and did very well doing that as well, right?
Neither one of them is wrong, in what they've done. And so to answer his question, again, generations are generations, and we are what we are today based upon our previous experiences. And so my granddad was making decisions based upon what the experiences he had gone through, the challenges that he had encountered, and the ways in which he went to get out of them. And then my dad and my two uncles, the same way. They, practiced a lot of what they were taught by my granddad, but then they had their own ideas. And each one of them, there was three of them, and each one of them had hit their own unique skill sets. Whether it's operations or finance or sales type of thing. And then even with JD and I, having grown up in the business, JD and I, and everybody knows Jay, we're very interchangeable. I mean, because we've grown up together for, close to probably 40 plus years now in the business. And we've been in almost every role and responsibility that one could have. And, if something happened to me, he could step into what I've got right now on my plate. And if something happened to him, I could step into his plate as well. But going back is that I think the way to make things work, and again, just because your family doesn't mean everyone's thinking the same. Typically, the way we like to say it is we all have the same destination, but we just have a different path of getting there. And so you have to talk about how we're going to get there. And there's got to be compromise. No one's always going to be right all the time. And you have to, and one thing I would say to the younger generation out there is that, you got to respect your elders. You wouldn't be where you are right now if it wasn't for what they put into it. And so you just have to acknowledge that they made a lot of great decisions throughout their time. And so it's that balance. Yeah.
And I think having empathy towards the elders, right? Because they've built something that's special to them and special to the family, right? And provides for everyone. And they're protecting that.
Right.
And I like what you say about, having a different path, same destination. I mean, I think that's really good whenever you have any kind of disagreement with people, especially people you love and that you're close to. It's like, hey, we have this in common. we all have the same goal here. Our tactics, we're disagreeing over tactics. How do we get there? We're trying to get to the same place. We have the same values. We have the same objective. We want to win together. We want this thing to be better than it was before. We're just kind of arguing, disagreeing over tactics and how do we get there and blocking and tackling.
Right.
And I think so when you acknowledge that, hey, we're 80% on the same page, just 20% of how do we get there that we can talk through. And it's tough, and I think what was that point when the torch was kind of passed, when it was like, hey, hey, here are the keys.
When it had to be.
When it had to be, yeah.
So I'll tell you the one thing about our family, we are not great at succession planning. And so
it's worked so far.
Well, the day that we're all going to the funeral home, the torch gets passed.
Oh, jeez. Oh, gosh.
No, I mean, I guess there's this confidence that, we all realize we all been working together for 40 years together, somehow, some way or another. And but we all will get there at that place in time where you don't want to let go.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, my granddad passed away at the age of 82 getting dressed for work. Had he and about 3 or 4 years before that, probably 4 or 5 years, and when he was 78, he kind of semi-passed the torch over to my dad by making him a president, probably in his late 50s, probably maybe 60. He was a founder. I mean, when you're the founder, it's hard to let go.
Yeah.
We could do a better job.
Yeah. Well, we all can. I mean, that's one of those consistent things that we hear all the time. And, and there's sessions on it at ATA and IAM about succession planning, and is it passing it to the next generation? Do they want it? Do they have what it takes? And it's a lot of times they don't want it, right? Or a lot of people think, hey, you need to go out and go make it out there at another company, learn some habits, learn some good habits and some new techniques, and stay up on things, and then come back if you still want to.
Sure.
There's a lot of thought process around that as well.
And that's what we've actually done with any consideration. So JD and I are both third generation.
Yep.
The question people always say, is there a fourth generation member in there?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that.
I think I lose count from time to time. I think there's 26 fourth generation members out there.
Okay.
JD and I alone have 13.
Wow.
But none of them right now are working in the business full time.
Okay.
Many of them have worked during school. But even when, high school or maybe freshman summer, possibly sophomore summer in college. But what JD and I agreed to many years ago was that because he and I were not silver spoon grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were out there painting trucks, working in the mechanics bays, sweeping floors, parking trucks when we were 13 and 14 in the lot.
Yep.
I mean, loading the trucks, and our kids were not, we're going to have to earn their way in as well. So what we said is that they all have to have a college degree. They all need to go out into the workplace for 6 to 8 years, develop a craft, develop skill sets, become valuable. And then if they have an interest in the organization and there's an opportunity in the organization, come in and apply, interview with non-family managers in the organization. Because that's the only way to keep it fair for your current team. Mm-hmm. There's nothing worse than bringing, in my opinion, family members in that are coming and hopscotching and leapfrogging over team members that you've had in there that have been working their tails off for 10, 15, 20 years, and you are where you are because of them. Mm-hmm. And it's not that right now our kids can't earn their way in. They just right now, they have interest of their own. And they're all doing very well, and they're all spread out across the entire country. And, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, if they come and they apply after a college degree, 8 years in the workforce, are they going to start painting trucks?
If that's what the job opening is.
Well, a lot of people say in this business, excuse me, that the third generation is where things kind of can fall apart.
I'm reminded of that all the time.
I mean, knock on wood here. No, but I mean, I think it's because people skip that painting trucks. The second generation gets the painting trucks thing, and sweeping docks and cleaning out driver cabs and all the things, the dirty work, the dirty jobs, as that show used to be, right?
Yep.
But your it sounds like your grandfather made sure that y'all didn't skip that step.
Well, it wasn't a matter of he made sure. You know, I tell some people that my granddad had kids just like farmers have kids to help them on the farm in the fields. I mean, honestly, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that kind of was the third generation intent here too, because that's what happened.
Yeah.
At least for JD and I. And so it wasn't that my granddad was making sure. My granddad, he needed help, and those three boys were going to help in this moving business.
Yeah.
That's the way it went.
I love it. This is great. Get in the comments here with your questions, your thoughts here. Curious what y'all are thinking out there. He says, Richard says, fascinating listening to the business history across generations. Bud, but if relocation were not in the blood, what would you like or have liked to do?
That is a great story. So I had been working at the company after high school every day, and then even summers. The day you got out of school, the next day you were
It's
working.
peak season, baby. Let's go.
Exactly.
Get a box.
And so the way the story goes is that when I was 15 and JD was 14, so what's that make us, like freshmen in high school, maybe an eighth grader or 1 year off of there. JD and I came into work the first day after school, and about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was a PA system in the warehouse. And the PA lady, the receptionist, said, Bud and JD, report to your dad's office. So, okay, what did we do?
What do we do? What did he find out about?
So we get in there, and he says, your mother will be here in a few minutes to pick you up. Why? Go home and pack in your suitcases. Why? You guys tonight are going out on the road.
Oh, wow. Oh,
so
wow.
My dad, unbeknownst to us, my dad had matched us both up with two drivers.
Wow.
JD's driver, JD was 14 at the time, I'm 15. JD's heading to Seattle, Washington with a trailer load of household goods. And then I am going to LA with a trailer load of motorcycles.
Wow.
So we had been contracted by, I think it was the Shriners. The local chapter had won an award to go to the National Shriners Convention out in LA and be in the parade. So JD's heading up the north side, I'm heading out the south side, and we're both heading to the West Coast.
Wow.
And let me tell you what, you want a learning experience at 14 and 15. And these aren't air ride full cabs back in that day. You know, these are all GMCs, and I'm sitting on the equivalent of what I felt was a card table chair for 3,000 miles across country, and JD the same thing. But we were gone 3 to 5 weeks or 6 weeks respectively that summer.
What did you learn through that process?
Some of the things I can't say.
What did you learn that you can repeat?
Especially when we got out to Ontario, California. There's a lot of Kentucky Fried Chickens.
Yes,
off
there's
the highway. Sleeping in that cab. He would sleep in the bunk, the bed, and we would put pads out across the driver's seat and
furniture pads, like quilted blankets.
And I'm making a mattress across that, and
learn how to fold pads real quick out there on the road.
Yeah, and that's how we were sharing the cab, and then get to California, and I'm making a hammock bed in the trailer, at nighttime, and strapping the door shut so it has a little air so I can breathe at nighttime.
Yeah.
And Jay, the same thing. I mean, you learned life. You learned what is going on in the world. You learn everything. I mean, lifelong experiences.
Do we coddle our kids too much these days and keep them? I mean, it feels like every parent's job these days is to put a bubble around their kids, and we put a lot of emphasis on AP chemistry and captain of the football team or whatever. But I'm wondering if we miss out on exposing them to life.
Well, we all want to be protective. I mean, just period. That's just human nature and whatnot. But my dad was putting us through what he went through, and he said to himself and looking in the mirror, I think I turned out okay. So, I'm gonna do it for these guys too. And so I have no regrets that he did that. I mean, sure, our friends at the pool and people going on summer vacations and stuff. Well, I've never gone on a summer vacation.
Because you're in the moving industry.
So what's that mean? But it worked. It worked. But, for me and JD especially, what it did is it earned the respect of other folks in the organization. The people that were working operationally, when we came back, they knew what we have done. The other drivers, I'm sure, told them all the stories about us, two little redheads out there,
Yeah.
skinny redheads on the road. But it, you can speak firsthand to your team. When I'm working in safety, and I'm talking about, fuel taxes, and I knew exactly what took place and why you get gas in certain states, because you got the fuel tax you got to take care of. You knew logs. I mean, you learn everything. You understand what the drivers are going through every day because you went through it yourself.
Do you think it makes you more empathetic to the driver?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you don't know until you've done it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And so both JD and I, that was starting at 14 and 15. And from there, it just evolved into us, working the streets and working the warehouses and driving the trucks and, doing our own road trips and running out,
How long did you work as a driver mover?
Oh, a long time. I would say, probably transition, probably a good 10 years.
Wow.
Easily 16 to 26.
So it wasn't just like a summer. It was like,
no. When we got out of school and everything, we were still working it. JD, after college for many years, was our agency field representative. We had a director of agency network, and JD worked directly for Jim, and Jay would just drive around the country, trying to recruit agents or meeting our existing agents and doing quality control inspections. And that's how his path, with more of the moving trade associations, Jay's path took him to, the whole NMSA and AMSA and all that type of thing. And there was no sense in the two of us stepping on each other's toes. So I kind of stayed on the client trade association type of deals. So,
right. So that's why I'll see you at ERC and I'll see him at AMS or IM or something like that.
And not that we both don't go to one or both don't go to the other and sometimes, but it was just like, we don't need to both be in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Get in the comments, hit that like button. I love the questions that are coming out. Shout out to everybody out there watching. This is a lot of fun. I'm learning stuff.
Yeah.
I've learned a ton of stuff. I think it's incredible. So talk to me about diversifying our business. I feel like right now it feels like the diversification of your moving business is supremely important, and I want to say more important than ever, but I don't know if that's the case because I haven't been around for 40 years in this business. What are your thoughts on diversification of your business and the importance
I
of
think
that?
it's probably, for anyone watching or listening right now, it's the most important thing that you need to get involved in if you're not diversifying. You have to. And I say that why? Because again, statistics and data, the data tells us what's going on. And the number of people and the percentage of the population that's moving on an annual basis has been decreasing over the last 13 years consistently.
Every year.
Since 2006, the number has never gone up. It's gone down. And so, folks, that's the fact. You're not going to change that. And even with the population growing, the numbers are still going down. So if you're concentrating strictly on residential moving, I would say you're doing yourself an injustice right now by not looking at other types of things. And so, it's one thing, well, I'm doing local moving, I'm gonna go to regional. I'm doing regional, I'm gonna do national. I'm national, I'm gonna do international. That's all fine and dandy, but it's still tied to household goods moving.
Right.
And that's a declining market.
Yep.
So, and then, well, I'm doing office moving. Well, that was a path at one point in time, but not anymore. I mean, right now, office vacancies are at the lowest point since 1993. Because why? Everybody's working remotely, and and so people aren't going into the office. And it used to be that when you went and moved an office, you had a desk, you had a credenza, you had
the
bookcases,
big oak credenzas,
oh my God,
and all the furniture.
the old in the government, you have the old metal desk, metal file cabinets. That doesn't exist anymore, so all you're doing is you're moving contents. And a lot of times you're not moving contents anymore because it's all digital.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing to move. Yeah. And so now, well, what are we doing? Well, we're repurposing space, or we're reorganizing space, we're re-engineering space, we're adjusting the space that used to have 100 for down to 50 now. But that is a declining market too. And so you have to look beyond residential and office moving. My opinion, What's on the front page of the national newspapers every day? What's getting funding? What industry sectors are growing? What industry sectors are anchors of the community that will never go away? And so, for instance, will energy ever go away? No. Will healthcare ever go away? No. Will technology ever go away? No. Will universities ever go away? No.
Maybe.
Well, it could.
Because there's one college is closing every week. I read that statistic.
I would agree with you.
Some of the small private
You'll have
liberal arts
anchor
schools.
ones in major markets,
Yeah.
but yes, some of these smaller ones really struggling. And online learning is growing at a rapid rate. And so, but look at those items that will be with us, and then go after that. We have the wonderful, great fortune, and again, better lucky than good at times, is that back in 1997, we had a former employee of ours, a summer packer, okay, wow. 10 years earlier, okay, so 1987, a woman that was a summer packer with us while she was going to college went to go work for AOL. This is in 1997, where a lot of people didn't even know who AOL was yet. But she ended up in the finance department, and then in the finance department, they were leasing equipment, and those equipment had to be returned to the lessor, to wherever they wanted you to send it to. And so she called into our sales desk. Our sales desk at that time was primarily household goods. And so the person manning the sales desk calls me and says, I have a woman on the phone who wants to know if we move computers. Could you take the call? I said, I'd be happy to. Yeah. Answer the phone. My name is blankety blank. I don't know if you remember me from 10 years earlier, but my sister and I were packers there. I said, absolutely, I remember you. And she goes, I've got this bill of lading in front of me in this file, and it has one of the major van lines' name on it, and they moved this equipment here 3 years ago, and now we need to return it. Would this be something that you could do? Wow. So what was my granddad's philosophy? Yes. Opportunistic. Yes. You always say yes, and the answer was yes. Of course. And so I said, can we? And she goes, well, it's quite a bit. And I said, well, I'll be happy to come out and take a look at it with you. And tomorrow, 3 o'clock work. She says that works out great. And so then I look over to my household goods corporate national accounts move coordinator, and I said, hey, we're going to go out and do a computer survey tomorrow. How about it?
How about
it? And she goes, do we move computers?
We do now.
But let's think about it, folks. Moving is moving. Yeah. Protection is protection. Logistics is logistics. Use your same principles that you've been following for, at that point, 40 years, and go out and take care of the customer. What about, so that led us to having a multi-million-dollar account in less than 24 months. Wow. And something that we weren't even involved in that particular time. Oh, and now look where technology is 30 some odd years later. And thank goodness we had that opportunity. We created a whole division around it. Wow. That we are probably one of the largest computer movers in the country right now. Wow. And thank goodness we're in a great market for that in the Washington, D.C. area, because it's the largest data center market in the world. Wow. But
didn't know that.
Diversification.
Wow. Wow. That's huge. That's huge. And if you weren't so hands-on in your business, you wouldn't have been there to take that phone call.
I don't want to take. I did what I was taught. Yeah. Someone else on the phone not being as opportunistic may have said no.
Well, and I've seen moving companies say no to stuff all the time. They say that's not the business that we're in. Right. And I get it. You don't want to chase every couch moving from the basement to the attic, but you got to keep your eye on the market and say, maybe, I can't tell you how much business I passed up because we had 4-hour minis. Mm-hmm. Well, our contracts are structured such that we have 4-hour minimums.
Don't tell the customer that, though.
Yeah, but what if we want to do 4 2-hour jobs in a day, sure, right?
Sure.
And I see some moving companies out there that have chased down this last mile business,
a lot.
This home delivery business, this Wayfair. Yes. Home Depot is now getting into it. All these appliances and everything, and we've been moving household goods our whole lives, but we haven't thought. Or we haven't gotten into the new household goods home delivery business where there's 12 stops or milk run with 12 stops in a day versus 2 stops in a day. Right. And yeah, it's different, but it's awful similar. And there's a huge growth in that business, whereas there's not in the used household goods space.
So I'll just, as an example, project cargo and freight as a global industry is greater than 10 times larger than the global residential moving market.
Wow. Project cargo and freight.
Yes.
Project cargo different than.
Again, project cargo being, for instance, right now we're involved in a project, and it's an international project, so it's freight forwarding, and each one of the projects are involved in 250 ocean containers or larger.
Wow.
In volume.
Wow. It's a lot of cans.
It's a lot of cans.
Yeah.
And it's cool stuff too. It's really high technology, robotics type of stuff we're involved in. And my granddad would never imagined.
Yeah.
And nor my dad, quite frankly. He passed away 7 years ago. He never imagined. He always had a desire, but he didn't see it come to full.
Well,
fruition.
and there's a lot of sophistication in the buying process for this stuff. I mean, how hard is it nowadays to even get, some of this kinds of work? I mean, I was just talking to Amar out there in the comments there, and he was like, and I was mentioning government contracts. Oh, that's good work. I was like, yeah, if you know how to get it,
right?
Because the government doesn't just come knock on. It's not like AOL. They just call you on a lark. It's like you got to know. You got to know what room to be in, where the solicitations are coming from. If they come out and you didn't know about it, it's probably too late. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that.
So you can do government work either directly with the government, or you can do it through a third party being a government contractor. So you don't have to necessarily be working with the government. There's lots of companies out there that coin themselves government contractors, and they're the ones that are actually going out there and becoming the prime contractors on these big opportunities. And then you can team with them, because ultimately they don't do it all. They're subbing to qualified folks that can do it. The one I just spoke to you on with just now, that we're a teaming partner.
No, very nice, very nice. Yeah. So it's really cool. There's so much interesting stuff going on here. Get in the comments here, hit that like button. I want to know what you're thinking out there. Amar's got a question. He says, as CEO, what are the top 3 most challenging aspects of your job, and how do you navigate through these challenges?
Great question. I would say there's more than 3. It changes every day. But I would say the one, first of all, vision, and because you need to lead. And the question is, where are you going to lead everyone to? And so, we talked about the data analytics and the market research and talking, and you have to know what is ahead of us 3, 5, and 7 years ahead. And 7's almost impossible, quite frankly. But again, you certainly want to look at trends, as I mentioned, with household goods moving. That is on a 13-year decline. So read the tea leaves there. And then number 2, talent. You cannot do what you're trying to do by yourself. It's the team. We would not be where we are is with everybody else on this team. It's not Bud Morrissette, it's everybody else. I just have the great fortune of working with everybody else, quite frankly. And then I would say right now, 3rd is expense control. The cost of things, and you all see it. Oh my gosh, it is just it's driving. It is so hard to contain the cost right now. And whether it's professionally with us in our businesses or personally when we're going out to dinner.
Sure.
I can't believe a bill at a restaurant right now.
Oh, it's like $100. So you sit down and have dinner.
You haven't had anything yet.
It's $100.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Lunch is like $20.
Yeah, but
go to lunch.
I'm just thinking, it's just like, well, who's making the money in this thing? I'm not talking about restaurants now. I'm talking about the cost of goods, and what our trucks are costing us now, and what the materials are costing us, and everything.
Kentucky trailer. I was talking to somebody about that. The household goods trailers. Kentucky's been the standard kind of for side door, drop deck household goods trailers, and in my relatively short career, I've seen the price double.
Oh, easily.
I remember because I didn't know much. I didn't know anything about Kentucky trailers. All I knew was the auction at AMSA. I know what they would go for, and they wouldn't go for much over retail, because somebody said, "I'll just go talk to the rep over there and pay retail," right? So they were going for $54,000 when I got into it. Now they're going for $100 and change.
Yeah, and then you get into some straight trucks, and if you want to cut, so what we've tried to do on our equipment is we've tried to go to versatile utility type of equipment where it can do anything any day. And so rather than having specialty equipment, so we'll have a 26-foot straight truck, and we're running all doors down one side of it with a lift gate on the rear. So
Wow.
we could go out there and you can do a local move with it. You could do a storage pickup. You can do a storage delivery. You could do electronics pickup.
So loading right into the storage vaults inside.
In a straight truck, or deliver it. International lift vans. So literally that truck can do anything any day. And if it's on, as your point said, rather than doing one move a day, maybe doing 2 and 3, well, with that piece of equipment, we could literally do any type of move in the course of that day. 3 different jobs, 3 different types of equipment you might need. That truck can do it all.
Now that truck body is going to cost more with all those cutouts.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, yeah, you're talking about a trailer, but our straight trucks are costing well more than the trailers.
Wow. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Super interesting. Gosh, I could talk to you all day, Bud. Hit that like button, get in the comments. Do you have just a minute though? Because I want to play a game. Let's play a game.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna play a game called Overrated, Underrated. Do you know how to play?
I think so.
Okay, it's easy. There's only 2 rules. Okay.
Okay.
1, I'm gonna give you a topic. You're gonna tell me if it's overrated or underrated. Okay. Those are 2 answers.
Okay.
Don't get cute. Don't overthink.
All right, I got it.
And number 2 is I'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a right or wrong to it.
Oh, there is today. All right. Anyway, here we go. I'm just kidding. Anyway, overrated, underrated. First topic is meetings. Overrated or underrated?
I think they are overrated unless you're going in with an agenda, you're taking notes, and you're walking out of there with action items.
Yeah. Gosh.
Other than that, don't waste your time.
I could use you as a consultant. You got to come straight into our meetings here a little bit. No, I love it. I love action items. I learned that. The key then too is to then be accountable to actually delivering on those action items, right? And then the next meeting, leading off and saying, okay, well, Ben, you said you were going to do this, and did you do it? Yeah, that's great. Great point. You know, I tend to agree they're overrated, but this is one of those things where my attitude has changed the further kind of up the chain I've gone, because meetings oftentimes I feel like are kind of for the people at the top to get a vision out, to get a strategy out, to trickle down an understanding from, you go out to ERC, you get all this data, you come back and, guys, I got to tell you what I saw out there. And then everybody's like, what? I'm like making the donuts over here. What do you want? And it's like, everybody get in a room and let's trickle down this information. And they're like, okay, this could have been an email. It's like, yeah, but you would have got my passion, in the email, right? Yeah, I agree. Meetings can be overrated. Yeah. All right. Let's keep it going here.
Okay.
Just get a point.
I got a point.
You got a point.
Right,
you got a point. He's competitive like me.
I am.
All right. Telephones, overrated or underrated?
Telephones, I think, are underrated. I will be sitting at my desk. Okay. And we have Microsoft Teams, and then we have Outlook, and then I've got my text. I've got, all this written communication tools, but I'll have my phone sitting on my desk, and everyone will do everything but pick up the phone and call me.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that. And on Teams, you can see if I'm available or not, because it says green.
Just call them.
But call me, because here's a story. We will resolve the issue like in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
But we are going to be back and forth otherwise.
I've done this with you. I've emailed you, I've texted you, I've probably LinkedIn messaged you, and I didn't call. And I don't know why I didn't call, but I just feel like it feels like intrusive, or like you're the CEO and like you're busy, and like, I don't know.
I answer my phone.
You do answer your phone, and we have great conversations, and
yeah.
we get to the bottom of stuff relatively quickly.
I'll be honest, folks. Use the phone.
Yeah.
We could get to where we need to be so much quicker if we would use a phone.
Yeah.
Use the other ones as alternatives, like, you didn't pick up, you were tied up or whatever. Send a little note, but even make a phone call to say, Ben, did you get my note? Because I don't know where your story is.
Yeah, let's keep it going. Okay. 2 points for Bud here. All right.
Hey.
Moving on here. You get confetti if you get all of them right. Working at the office.
It is underrated.
Okay.
And I say that because that human interaction, you need it. You really do need it. We're as human beings, we're people. We're people.
We are.
And we like interaction. And and how I prove it to myself One is that every year we bring all of our remote employees from around the world together for a week to our place to just have the camaraderie, to do some training, and then we have our awards gala and all that good stuff. And overwhelmingly, when the remote team comes in, they just rave. They rave about how good it's to see everybody, how much they got out of the week. Personally, my team doesn't know this. I'm thinking about doing it more than once a year because we just get so much out of it.
Yeah.
And even for those that are coming in 2 days a week or 3 days a week, we get work done faster because, you know, I can walk around the corner. People, as you mentioned, you were maybe hesitant to call me. Well, in some cases, people are reluctant to maybe even reach out electronically to ask somebody something, and will either pass it by, ignore it, or whatever else.
Yeah.
But boy, if you have that opportunity to walk down the hallway 30 feet or see someone in the employee lounge or at the water fountain or wherever you're going to see them in the parking lot, you can take care of business.
Yeah.
And that means we took care of something. Let's move on and get something else done now.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'll tell you, just having you come in today and doing this, I mean, I've done 600 of these and 90% of them are remote. And the way that we can communicate, the way that we can do the body language, I give you a tap every once, I'm just kidding, you know, or whatever, or we can do this, you can kick me under the table. I'm just kidding. He's not doing that. But you know, we're getting all this body language and it's just a whole nother experience. And I can't agree with you more. We've got Jillian in the chat here. She's moving now from Connecticut. We're relocating her here to Dallas because we want to create something here with collaboration, you know, and get that buzz going on in the office. And we come out here, we sit at the conference room table, and we just chop it up about different ideas and stuff, and you can't beat it.
Yeah, no, I heard a radio program the other day. It was a call-in program, and they were talking about, you know, the remote work.
Yeah.
And people they were voluntarily calling in, so you didn't have to call in. And overwhelmingly, the callers calling in were saying they enjoyed actually being in the office and they were missing it. And they weren't as productive at home. I fully understand there's situations that require people to work from home. I'm not advocating here that no one should work from home. I think it's just, you got to get a good balance.
Yeah.
You know, period.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And sometimes we don't even know what we're missing out on, right? Until we do it. And we bring our people in quarterly. We're a smaller team. So historically, we've brought our people in quarterly. Although I've been a little more reluctant to do it when things have gotten tight over the last, 6 months, 12 months.
Right.
But gosh, you know, my cup is full, right? Everybody's just so filled with camaraderie is a good way to put it. Just kind of nostalgic, kind of like we're feeling the love. And I think that's really great.
That's good stuff.
Man, you're 3 for 3. But you're on the heater here.
I don't plan on losing here.
I don't plan on losing. Let's go. Number 4. Email.
Overrated. My thing about email is that folks believe that I've emailed you and I've done my job.
Oh gosh, yes.
And I'm it's off my plate now, and it's like au contraire.
Au contraire, my friend.
No way. Here's a story. A communication when we're supposed to be communicating, there needs to be an acknowledgement back. It needs to be two-way. It's not one way. And so nothing upsets me more than when I'm talking to someone and they said, well, I emailed them. So that's number one. Number two, you know, when 10 days have gone by and someone says, well, didn't you see my email?
From 10 days ago?
Yeah.
No, obviously, if I didn't respond in 4 hours, I did not see your email.
Right.
I need another one.
And so what I do personally is that if I send an email out, and if it's something noteworthy, needs a response, whatever it might be, there's an action item behind it, I copy myself in and I drag and drop that email now that I'm receiving from myself, and I put it over to my Outlook calendar. I just drag and drop it to the calendar, and then I'll put it on for either later today or I'll put it on for tomorrow. And then I see it on the calendar and I got to follow up with you. I didn't hear back from you yet. And so I remind myself that I sent you something, but I owe it to myself and I owe it to you that I need to follow that communication up, because I haven't heard back. So I don't know that you saw it or not. I'm assuming you haven't seen it. But this is an action item, folks. We have a decision to make.
Yeah.
And so you know, I take the role and responsibility that I have, that you know, I own the communication. Just sending out this.
Totally.
Then
Yeah.
do.
You have to own the results, and not just the action, but the results. And if they didn't email you back, you got to do something different. I love that. I get a lot of email. I don't know about you. You probably get a ton of email.
I get more than I can answer.
More than you can
Easily,
answer, more than you can even read or acknowledge. It
Right.
comes in all day, all night.
Right.
So a lot. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just skim. I skim through it. I try to find stuff that's from people that are important or subjects that are important or whatever. Understanding that I'm copied on so many things that are just FYI, or maybe to get the other person to respond. So
there's not enough hours in the day for all of us to respond to the emails. I mean, literally, if you did not sleep 24 hours a day, there's still not enough time.
And I don't know that email is our highest and best use either. So to be managing our inbox to a zero inbox,
it's reactive. It's not proactive, in my opinion. All you're doing is you're waiting, and it's just like, I don't have time to wait.
Yeah. And if it's an important enough email, somebody will call you.
Right. Well, that's what you would figure. Theoretically.
Or they'll text you.
Theoretically.
All right. You're 4 for 4 here, bud. Let's go.
Easy,
Number 5, American Idol, overrated or underrated?
I have to say overrated, because I'm a Voice fan.
Okay.
I like The Voice. Now, American Idol, when it originally came out, I enjoyed the show. Yeah. I think The Voice does a better job. I like the dynamics between the folks, the judges.
The judges, you like the judges better too?
Yeah.
And then what about the whole, like, that's the one where you
know?
hit the buzzer and you turn around kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the blind, they don't know what the person looks like or anything. And then they change those judges from time to time too. And I think they've done a pretty good job of who they bring on there. You may not like them all, but that's all right. It's dynamics.
I like The Voice. All right. Those shows, I have a weird relationship with those shows, because I think I hate them, but then I end up like loving them. I
don't set my clock for them at all, but I will remain attentive when they're coming down to the finals.
It makes me,
because I'm a music lover. I love music. So
I'm so emotionally invested in them though, that it tears me up inside. Like just to watch it, it's just like gut wrenching for me.
Like when someone's getting the hook.
Yeah, they're getting the hook, or they didn't make it, or they're trying really, or maybe they just saw. I don't know, but it's just like I get so emotionally invested.
I think they do a pretty good job of those that are deserving to get them pretty far down the line.
Yeah.
And then, because I don't know how it all works, but I would imagine those people are getting national or not worldwide recognition. And so there's some producer somewhere that's calling them up or looking into them or something. You could be maybe ranked 24th, but there's someone somewhere that says, I like you. Will you come, do my club or do my events, or you want to do a record label or something?
I actually, my favorite one of those types of shows is actually So You Think You Can Dance.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed watching that. My wife and I used to watch that a lot. This is before kids. We used to have time. And we'd watch So You Think You Can Dance. And I would get into that stuff.
I'm not a very good dancer, so I don't watch that.
Yeah, I'm not a good singer, but watch. This is great. All right, you know what? You're right. It's overrated. 5 for 5. A perfect 5 for 5 here.
We're gonna offend some.
If we're not offending people, we're not
American Idol.
We're not doing it right.
So
get in the comments here if you're an American Idol or a The Voice person or something else. Let us know. But this has been a lot of fun. I could talk to you for a long time. You want to leave us maybe with just a final thought we should be thinking about?
Oh, geez.
We don't have to be anything too profound, but maybe just something that's kind of on your mind lately.
Well, I would guess what I would say is hang in there. We've all been going through some tough times, especially over the last 3 or 4 years with the COVID. One of the things you said earlier about just how we've gotten to be where we are in 80 years in business, and how do you sustain a year of business? My granddad said that you always you save for a rainy day, and there'll be plenty of rainy days ahead. So, we don't have a magic ball, but we do know there's going to be tough times. We don't know exactly when that tough time is going to be. So just prepare for it. Be adaptive, be able to pivot as quickly as you possibly can. Follow your gut. As well and better than anybody. So, if folks are saying one thing, but you feel otherwise, it's you. So just do what you feel good with. Yeah, I love that. And oftentimes that's when you really are right, is when you feel like everybody's going this way and you just really know it's going that way. Right. I usually find that to be correct. This is awesome. Bud Morrissette, CEO of Interstate Family of Companies. It's been awesome having you here. Enjoyed it. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody. Stay tuned this week. Got some good